What's up, everybody, and welcome back to WCS EU Challenger Season 3. I'm in control, joined by Zombie Grub. How are you doing?
I'm great. I get to cast with the in control.
Yeah, that's an honor that, like...
Dozens of people get to enjoy.
Dozens, yeah.
Yeah, dozens.
I was going to make a joke about a lot of people, but I'm like, no. The scene, the caster scene, we're a small group.
It's pretty small now.
Yeah.
It's like 9 of us.
Ever since Husky left, there's been such a vacuum. But here we are. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you're just now joining us, you've missed some amazing Zerg versus Zerg. No, not really, but some pretty cool results for these guys. Snoot does topple Namshar, which is a big deal. Stephano predictably losing to a laser, but it's an okay couple of games, right?
I mean, they were okay, but it was exactly as expected. Stephano just not quite able to reach whatever level he has to beat those top 10 Zergs.
And like you said, it's funny how it played out too, because it's like he was ahead, he was up in army supply, but closing it out seems to be what kind of eludes him. He pushes into a choke space with Queens transfusing that final battle, and that's just all she wrote, even though he went into it with a 30-40 army supply.
Yeah, he'll get to a decent position, and then the army fights happen, and they just don't work out for him.
Yeah. And that's ZvZ for him, unfortunately. But we're going to see if he can turn that around, because this next match that we do have coming up here is going to be Stephano against Namshar. Two awesome, very strong Zergs. But Stephano, of course, having a tough time in that ZvZ matchup. He needs to turn around now. Otherwise, he'll be flying to Montreal in a couple of weeks and playing in that open bracket, which we see a lot of these guys. I know Neeb lost last WCS Challenger season, went into the open bracket, made it out okay.
Yeah, I did pretty well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I do think that is going to be the plan for Stephano, as this entire group is going to be hard for him just as regular Zergs, right? ZvZ, not his cup of tea. And then you have this guy, Namshar, is facing the losers bracket. That is actually, starting to really turn heads because he is beating these top-tier Zergs. So even though he did lose to Snoot, that was a close best of 3. And as such, I think him versus Stephano, I actually feel like Namshar should be very comfortable here.
Yeah. This is the player he was... Well, if you're going to be in that loser match, I think this is the player he was expecting to face. I think all the players kind of looked at poor Stephano and kind of like sized him up and were like, all right, you're the one we're feeding off of. I just need to beat either a laser or Snoot or Namshar, depending on who you are in there.
Yeah.
But we're going to get into that momentarily. This lobby is waiting to be made. If you're worried about only seeing ZvZ, fear not. There's a single Protoss that will be featuring later today with 3 Zergs. But it's a fun story as well, as the North American WCS Season 3 Challenger will continue there immediately after this. So it's just nonstop StarCraft. Thank you guys for tuning in. And then tomorrow, we have a little bit more diversity. There's some Terrans in there, as I understand. A couple of them, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. VC Thermo. Yeah.
And Mass as well, which is funny. Do I remember correctly that Moss is in the same group as Scarlet?
No. I actually don't think Moss is playing tomorrow.
I thought he was.
It's Scarlet.
Color. Oh, no. You're right.
Yeah.
There's a whole nother weekend. My bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's next weekend where he's playing. Okay.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Well, it's a surprise even for me, guys. So yeah, we're just still waiting on this bracket, or not bracket, excuse me, the lobby. And once that gets up, we'll get right into it.
What do you want to talk about?
I know, right? I looked at you, the gears were turning like, now we talk about something. There was a cockroach in here earlier. Did you catch that?
God. No, I didn't. No. But I was told about it in the break.
Yeah. The Overwatch guys go over to Korea, and then there's a cockroach in the lobby.
That's what happens.
That? The voice of God said something I didn't hear because I was... Oh, lobby's up.
Invite's finally up. Yeah.
Very good.
I'm not really that scared of cockroaches. Obviously, This is not my home, so I don't really care. But my mother is terrified. She once actually sprayed the cockroach entirely white with Raid. That's how you know it's dead.
Okay, the voice of God is still telling us what the... Okay, so he wants us to talk about GSL versus the world.
Does he?
You were... Not about the cockroach is what he says. I think that's actually That is... I mean, that's amazing. Anyways. How are you?
I'm good. I was at GSO versus the world.
Yeah.
Just to tie that in.
I know, we did a whole show about it just a couple days ago. So that's why I feel a little bit weird being like, it's been 24 hours since I last asked you about this.
Well, GSO versus the world was amazing. And we did have Cyril win. And Cyril is playing in... What, is he playing tomorrow, actually?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah.
I thought he's going to play tomorrow. It's funny now because you look at every group that he's in, and I don't know, he's done so well and in such dominant form that I look at no group. I mean, Thermal's in there, and it was 2 Challenger seasons ago, or maybe the last one. I think either way, it was Euthermal that said he's the best guy to beat Serral. But after watching him dismantle Maru, it doesn't feel like it, right? Or
Yeah,
Innovation?
yeah. No,
It doesn't feel like
I'm
it.
pretty sure whoever Serral goes up against, he's just going to dismantle piece by piece, no matter what they do. So I love that. I think that's an awesome story.
Yeah.
Montreal, if that's his 4th WCS win, would be awesome.
Unprecedented.
Yeah, that's certainly true. But we still have to get through this European group. So Namshar versus Stephano coming up here on Lost and Found.
What are you hoping for here? Do you think Stephano has what it takes to kind of bite back?
You know,
Take this from Namshar?
I really want to hype this up, but I also want to be really brutally honest, and I don't think so.
No, see, you belong here. This is the brutally honest day of StarCraft commentary.
Ooh, yeah, these controls. Ooh, there we go. Beautiful.
Yeah, you're the observer now.
Yeah, I have like this really important task, and
You're the captain.
It's everything. It's like left. Oh gosh, this is gonna be great. All right, well, we are spawning into Lost and Found for game number 1 in the top right. As the blue Zerg, he is Namshar.
What is a name?
The
something?
person's name?
That's it, right?
Oh my gosh, why would you inverse the... Okay. You want to do the honors here?
I would love to introduce this player in the lower left-hand side from France, one of the best personalities in all of StarCraft. It's Stephano. Ilias, also a cool name. And Saturi. Saturi sounds like a final boss in like an Assassin's Creed or something like that, you know?
It does, yes. Well, it's going to be a wild ride as I get used to these controls, but no early pools.
Are you inverted?
Yes.
Okay.
It's great. It's
That's
great.
good, yeah.
Why would anyone do
You're
this
a better
to
sport than
themselves?
I am. I would start just divaing it up. Like, oh, I can't do this. You're doing fine. So.
I also don't use this overlay, so that's extra cool. But it's a great overlay. Best overlay ever created.
Well, this is the overlay. Yeah.
The overlay.
You got to
Thank
get
you
with the
very
times
much.
now.
Thank you very much.
Look at the spawning pool off to the side. I have to bring this up because it's such a weird thing, and I asked about it, and it was, I believe, a laser, or maybe it was Lambo. I actually think it was Lambo that gave me the explanation that Zerg is starting to do this as like extra spotting in the base because it's so common to run Lings in, tuck them in the corner, and make some Banelings. That's it. That's the whole reason.
Yeah, but the trade-off is, I feel like the trade-off can be severe for those early pool scenarios, which are still definitely popular in ZvZ, where you don't have that pool over here, nice tucked in for your queen to help. So it's like, it's, I don't know, you give and take, but they both apparently like what they are doing.
Oh, there you go. I was going to point out that you haven't changed scenes the entire beginning of it, but there we are. That's what I would do if I was inverted. I would just be like, we're just going to watch it from this base.
Yeah, well, I can't wait till there's a fight going on. I'm like, Roach is over here. Oh, shoot.
See, in time, you'll learn to just be like, and we got Fear Dragon observing. That's really nice of you to do that.
Actually, I feel like I have a lot of experience observing, just usually not inverted, so that's kind of weird. Whoa! Well, luckily, you know, inverted doesn't really matter for when you click on the minimap.
Yeah.
So this third hatch, that's actually a pretty fast one.
Very fast.
I mean, it's not totally uncommon, but definitely set the pace here. So Namshar's going to follow suit very shortly behind him.
Yeah, not too different on the hatch timings. I think the bigger deal here is kind of how they're both doing the same thing, and for right now they're droning, and the number of Lings is trivial at best. You're not going to kill or do really anything with that number. It's going to be that eruption, though. Both players do have the Baneling Nest and speed queued up, so if they're going to get aggressive... And they both spotted the third hatch, too, by the way. That's the nice thing about Overlord scouting at the beginning of the game, is that not too much goes by without you noticing it.
Do have a decent number of Lings on the way for Stephano. I mean, and Namshar.
Yeah.
We have not had really a lot of Ling Baneling action, at least in the past 2 best of, well, including this one, best of 3s. And that's the most exciting time, in my opinion, for ZvZ. You really do get to test your opponent. But, I mean, Namshar is a very solid guy. I mean, he'll go right into those roaches if he wants to. Stephano can mix things up. He wasn't really. Not in this regard, the last best of 3. And he is going back into droning after making only a handful of Lings, couple Banelings on the way, something that Namshar doesn't quite see. So Overlord's on the way, but not quite here.
I guess we could spend, I'll take us there, I suppose, but spend a little bit of time on it. It's kind of funny because I think Stephano is one of the most straight up players you'll ever face, right? Like his style across the board is just kind of what he does. Certainly in his heyday, he would mix in an all-in or 2. And I feel like that's part of what does him a disservice in ZvZ is he's just like, I'm going to drone up, I'm going to get to the mid-game phase and try to out-micro you there with those units. And back in the day, that worked because he was just better than everybody. But I think the scene caught up. And if you know a person's style, especially in ZvZ, it is one of the most punishable matchups I find. Because if you can just get 10 drones more because you know you're safe at that time, it's just insane. And right now, Namshar's not taking advantage of that. And they are just kind of droning back and forth. So a lot of what I just said is maybe even wrong, if not irrelevant. But at the end of the day, we still just, we had this nice little talk.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, mostly it was you, but...
It was just me.
Yeah. Namshar actually been he scouted twice, so I'm not sure if he just barely didn't catch the roach or something like that, but Stephano not getting so much scouting over here. I think he knows he can depend on Namshar to do, X, Y, or Z, most likely roaches, so he's not so eager, but you always have to be worried about once these layers are finishing up that odd spire. They're getting a little bit of scouting, a little bit of poking and prod again with the banelings they have left over, and not really the point of the ZvZ anymore. It is actually mostly about the scouting. You really want to see if your opponent is even getting that lair, right, of course, but they both are, and again, that spire. So he's going to try and hide the lings, but spawning pool doesn't actually see that right over there. He knows about them.
Overlord speed here for Namshar, so kind of going to the theme of what you were talking about with just continuous scouting and making sure you're on top of that. That would speak to that. If he does end up going Overlord drop, that would be really fun. That's something that we've definitely seen in ZvZ, but just in the Zerg matchup a little bit more than we have in the past. But we'll have to wait and see if that is the direction he's going to go. Fourth base is queued up for both players. And you guys used this term in the last broadcast, but a very gentlemanly ZvZ. Like, this has been, even the Zerg, the Ling scouting has been like passive. It's like, I'm just here to see stuff. I'm not here to kill anything. A couple of banelings waddled back and forth, but were immediately picked up and did nothing.
This actually would be enough to get a cancel if the banelings were in here. And he actually tries to dodge away from them, but I'm not sure it's really worth it. I guess the lings are kind of what else they're going to do, but definitely not going to cancel there. Just continued scouting, and they are both going into just pure roach here. +1 carapace starts for Namshar faster. I mean, this has kind of been a trend for the last 3 games of Stephano, is that his upgrades have been just a little bit later. But if he's not investing into those upgrades, so it's only 60 workers making nothing but roaches, he might just be hitting a very similar army supply timing as that acid plant game, where he was up a very good amount of army supply. But if he's going to do it, he would have to move out now. And he actually does start the +2. Does he have a second evolution chamber? No, so he would fall behind in upgrades. But he's instead adding on a Hydraliston.
I want to say the Hydraden, and this might be the caster trying to make things cooler than they actually are, but maybe the Hydraden, and it does get canceled, so actually I was correct in this theory. He starts it because the Overseer was beginning to scout. Now, if you see a Hydraden like that, you don't think a timing attack's about to happen. So I'm looking at Namshar. Was he fooled? I don't see any drones popped up. I want to say that just the number of roaches are what kind of told him that there's an attack impending, but a cute little idea from Stephano. I just don't think it got the result he wanted, but, not a big sacrifice.
Namshar is already at 66 drones, so, I mean, he could have stopped on his own Hydraliston, maybe, I don't know, Infestation, if he really thought he wasn't going to be attacked, I guess, but he was kind of in that position where, they're both going to start making army.
Yeah, but they're trying to kill an Overlord right now, but the fight's happening.
Yeah, they're not so important as this fight where Stephano is up 20 army supply, hitting before the upgrades of Namshar, and able to get that 4th base at the very least. He's going to take that back away. Yes, he is. Doesn't actually want to tangle with the rest of the army.
A couple of Ravagers found themselves at the front lines here for Namshar as well. It was just a couple, though, so I don't want to sell this as the biggest of deals, but like you said, the 4th base dies. Now, Stephano, still producing more roaches behind this, is looking to get a whole lot more done. Those upgrades you point out, they're about to finish, and with the 2 missile and 1 carapace, as well as speed clicking in for Namshar, who is trailing behind in army supply in particular, but with those upgrades, could get back ahead.
These upgrades are actually going to be really brutal. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if Namshar is going to immediately counter. He's almost maxed out, so I feel like he should. He even knows where the army is because he got that Overlord speed. Hasn't really had to worry about being denied vision like he's been trying to do to Stephano. So, okay, there is the move out. He's actually going to catch a large chunk of roaches. I guess Stephano left behind to try and surprise the 4th base being slapped down again. Instead, he just gets outpowered over actually on both sides potentially. Another Overlord might bite the dust, not quite, but this is a 2-1 upgrade, now a 1 upgrade lead for Namshar.
A little bit of a concave here for Stephano. Nice pull back there, avoiding those corrosive piles. Another engagement happening on the left side of the map, but Stephano seems to have the better of it. Army supply still in favor of the Frenchman, as he is going to chase back Namshar's units. Now, kind of an important thing to keep your eye on here as Tunneling Claws is coming up for Stephano, as well as Burrow. The upgrade advantage is big for Namshar. It's a 2, actually now just a 1 upgrade advantage, with the second carapace ahead of even the first carapace of Stephano. It's going to be about a 2 upgrade advantage, but if Stephano can hold on for it now, have that 4th base for a bit longer, he only has a 2 drone supply advantage, so that's not that big of a deal. But the point I'm trying to make is the upgrades become null and void as time goes on.
He did not see this attack incoming. The overloads were just
boy.
a little bit off, even though he has overload speed now. He didn't really start to reposition them. So his base just gets sniped, and a large portion of the roaches could escape. Over on the right side, it looks like Namshar maybe miscontrolled or overestimated the value of his army there as he just moved into Stephano's. So lost a bit, but he continues to split up his roaches. Actually, didn't evacuate entirely. Actually, this is, okay, that was weird micro going on there. He's going to split everything up, and he's going to get the drone damage, even though he's not the one going for tunneling claws.
Yeah, unfortunately, he kind of mismanages the size of the engagement on the left side, and the splitting of units for Namshar was just a beautiful move. He got the 4th base. It looks like he could get the 3rd here. In fact, he will. And trading out roaches for these positional advantages is totally fine. Now maybe landing some corrosive bile. He does, getting a couple of Ravagers as well. Because both players are maxed out, like you point out, so they can remake these guys. But if you're trading them for drones and hatcheries and mining time, well, that's the kind of stuff that you can't so easily replace. And you find yourself falling further behind. Now, Stephano somehow still has a supply advantage. In fact, a significant one in the army. If he can turn that around, I mean, I feel like he's got to do it. He's got to win in a big way, though, right? Because it's the resupply that's a huge issue, too.
Yeah. I mean, at least it's still going to be 1 upgrade down. Do we have any Hydras quite yet for Namshar? A few, but if he had Lurkers, I think he'd be feeling a lot more confident about his defense. He is down in that army supply. He might have the better angle, but he actually got a little bit split up. Kind of letting Stephano through here.
Yeah, he's going to come walking up here. The Burrow Tunneling Claw roaches trying to get in some key positions, not really finding it super well. Supply now in favor of Namshar, and he's up 20 supply in army as well. And the bad is going to get worse. Stephano had a nice little advantage, but Namshar was not going to allow that army to get into position to do too much, as he is going to win that fight in a significant way. And now the number that's really scary here is a 22 drone advantage for Namshar, who kept and remade most of those bases too, so his just ability to produce is through the roof.
These roaches did manage to sneak away. Namshar is following a smaller clump up to the natural, so they're going to get a decent number of drones. They actually do even up the word count quite a bit, but that army supply, that's too terrible to actually overcome, I believe. Half the army supply, Stephano was desperately trying to rebuild 2 bases off of still what would be a low drone count anyways.
Yeah. And
it's not looking too great in this game.
You know, if Stephano had a lurker den right now and was able to, you know, just kind of squeeze out 6-7 lurkers, something like that, that's one of the tech paths that in a ZvZ you can make up the difference in supply. And tunneling claws are kind of the poor man's way of doing that, I guess, I suppose, as well, right? You get some 6-5 roaches or something like that in each mineral line. You can buy time inexpensively on your side and make it really hurt for your opponent. But I'm looking over here at Stephano, he's just making more Ravagers, making more roaches. And while you said the drone count did equal up, it's now again a 20 difference. It's Stephano who's just tunnel visioned, if you will, on just trying to end the game with roaches and Ravagers. And it's hard to see it working.
Namshar is going to play the defensive playstyle, I guess, from here on out, which makes sense. That's what Namshar, I think, is more well known for. Even though he does have the army supply, maybe he's a little scared of those tunneling claws. In fact, he is. I mean, he got a Spore Crawler, got more Overseers, getting a Spine Crawler to help out as well. And then adding on the Infestation Pits, so just moving on to the next phase, even though he already has a tech advantage in those Lurkers. If he was to push across the map and find a decent position, he would probably win. But it is once again Stephano making the move out onto the map. He's got to be careful, though. I don't see any Overseers with this army.
Yeah. I don't like his odds, but I will say one of the best ways to overcome the Lurker difference here would be to be the aggressor and to drop those corrosive biles on top of the Lurkers. But like you said, there's no Overseers, so it's a little bit more of a guessing game as to where the Lurkers are, and most of the time you find out by them shooting you, so it kind of, well, there is that Overseer. Now we're going to have the dance of the corrosive biles. Even stacked defense going down for Namshar. So, I mean, yeah, if you got enough Ravagers and you land all those skill shots, maybe?
He's being pushed aside from every other attempt at harassment, it looks like. Although that harassment did just split up Namshar's army, so he goes in against the Lurkers, but actually, I think it's only 1 survived, but still enough with the Spine Crawlers. The attacks to the main, natural, and third base didn't go as well as Stephano was hoping for. Only 5 drones have died, and they are being chased down, but Stephano has managed, I mean, by being aggressive like this, he now knows that Namshar is at least on his side of the map. He can go back into a little bit of droning. So he's back up to 50, which is decent. 4 bases. I mean, on equal bases, too. Like, there's a chance, especially if Namshar does mess up his positioning with his Lurker play. But he is getting to the even better Hive tech now, as that just completed.
Yeah, it's so funny. It feels like, you know, very much so the Stephano problem in ZvZ. We're like, here's what he's doing right, and it's really good, and he could win. But, and we feel like we are always saying that but, right? Like, it is Hive tech, so the upgrade advantage is going to be massive. Lurkers, when they can burrow really quick, become insane. But Stephano's going to try to capitalize right now. He picks off a few of the roaches. Corrosive Biles are making their way on top of the heads of Namshar's units. A good concave here. Spine Crawlers are okay, not the best defense, but if more of these Corrosive Biles can land, all of a sudden everything I just said before this becomes a little bit silly.
Every time this single lurker, the two lurkers get a chunk through the roaches, it just like suddenly they're like, oh, that's a lot of roaches, and suddenly, nope, that's no roaches. Yeah. They're weak and they're dead very, very quickly. So he is going to continue to hold over on the 4th base, keep a maxed out army as well, where Stephano is struggling to continue to get maxed out, even though he's spending it on cheaper units, although I guess Ravagers are kind of expensive, and that's really where he's putting most of his money into.
Like you said, no bank. There is no tech behind this for Stephano. He has to end this game with Roaches and Ravagers for the foreseeable future. And there is the 3-3 upgrades and the fast burrow queued up here for Namshar. So he's got an army supply advantage, he's got a worker advantage, and he's about to have a massive tech advantage. Where is the button for Stephano, right? I don't see it. He's just maxing out with no bank, and that's how it's got to be.
That left side attack from Namshar, once again, just going unnoticed from Stephano, who is going to have roaches in his 4th base and 3rd, although his own roaches are in Namshar's main and natural, looking for some drone kills for a little bit tit for tat. But what about the main army fight?
Yeah, that's the big fight right here. Good concave for Stephano, but like you said, going into those lurkers, it feels like it just costs you a pound of flesh every time. He's got a great concave here that's about as good as it gets. But still, the trade out is just too savage. Behind this, 25 of his 50 drones have died. And even if nothing else was damaged from this point on, that would be a mortal wound by itself, I think. He is doing some return damage, but it's just so insignificant to what he's faced. And now the defensive Namshar is starting to push across the map a little bit. There's a trail of ants, cockroaches even, crawling across the map.
Oh, that's exactly what they are. This is looking, I mean, Stephano, he got another maxed out army, even when I think we both thought he was pretty much dead. And if Namshar had not played like he did, maybe he didn't go for the defensive style, maybe he did try and counter and it turned into like a weird base for base trade. I mean, these things could have gone wonky, but Stephano is yet again ultimately at a loss for ZvZ. It's like he gets to like an okay position, he gets some okay ideas, but then Namshar, well, he's very solid, and he kind of proved it in this game.
Well, it's so tough for him too, right? Like, Stephano played a great game, but he's playing against Namshar, who's red hot in ZvZ and has just been making some decent money and results for himself in this matchup almost specifically. It's not like it's his only matchup, but it's certainly one of the featured ones, whereas Stephano lately has been killing it ZvP and ZvT, but he keeps getting these good European Zergs.
Yeah, very unfortunate group for him. Potentially last fights, he's got so many Ravagers that Namshar really can't push through any choke and has to be very careful about how he positions his lurkers as well.
Stephano literally has one hatch, by the way, so it's like such a Stephano moment right now where there is, it's not 0, guys. Let's call it like a 5% chance that Stephano wins from here. Yeah. No, let's call it like a 3 or 2.
Okay. Oh, I'm actually
look at the production tab. Look at
There's no production.
Actually not making anything.
His army is only down 30, right? And like, let's say that 3% chance is when the lurkers are all right here and they all die. Like, that is that chance. Corrosive Biles could maybe bring this back. Finds a, okay, that was kind of a weird queen. Is still going to try and do some harassment as well. He finds a brand new base without sack defenses and a lot of drones just transferred. That's nice. But how do you actually take on the army?
Yeah, well, Stephano's got the heart of a lion. This is just game 1 of this best of 3. But it is the loser match. And there's those lurkers, but look at the damage. And Stephano's just walking into it,
Yeah.
GG. It does become a numbers issue there at the end, as we like to say, as Stephano taps out in that first game. A nice back and forth. And, you know, like I said, and like you said, it's kind of that thing. It's not like Stephano looks clueless and has no idea what to do and can't win. He gave a great game. He had good ideas. Yes, he was locked into a tech path, but after a certain point, you can't really spend resources after a couple of things and change your tech path. It's just that he's facing these really good Zergs. Namshar is just he's one of the top ZvZ players and certainly one of the top Zergs in Europe.
And it's got to be one of the more frustrating things to happen to a player, where it's not like, oh, I got a bad, run of cheeses, or I really don't understand the matchup, and I always, like, he's actually, like, in these good positions, yet it's always just that one army fight that doesn't go so well, and he's like, well, what do I do with that information? Like, just take fights better, I guess? Like, sure, I suppose, but, yeah, this is his last life, literally. If he loses here, he's out of the group, and... oh, it's even if he wins here, let's say he actually takes out Namshar, then he has to just face 2 other, like, maybe even better, more experienced Zergs. So
laser or Snoot, like it's tough. And he's fought well so far too. So I know I can hear ourselves talking about like we're literally laying Stephano into the earth and just covering him with dirt right now, but he kind of is. But he's just such an iconic and fantastic player and has been for years that I'm very certain we'll see him in that Montreal Open bracket. He's been at all the other ones, and he plays some great games, and it's just. ZvZ. It's just really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you watch the game too, and it's not like there's this glaring thing that he's doing wrong. He's microing pretty well. He's got good ideas. He's just hitting that like, oh, I didn't catch that, and then that's the end of it, and it's just so tough. It's hard to watch. It
is, especially when, as you said, his ZVT and ZVP is actually looking kind of fun and dynamic.
Really way up there.
And it's actually pretty good. And then you get to see him, you're the casual StarCraft fan only sees him at the event like this, and you're like, well, what happened to Stephano? It's like, oh, come on, like his ZvZ is just, that's what constantly hurts him. And he knows it too, and yet just can't seem to break past the barrier.
Well, when something gets in your head like that, and it's not even like he's so much, that's the thing. Stephano was just better than everybody else years ago. The scene was just not that developed. He was the guy carrying the torch as like the champion of the non-Koreans. Since then, the list of non-Koreans that take games away from Koreans and win tournaments and do well and have these huge moments is just nowhere near what it was back then. Back then it was like 2 or 3 tops. Now it's like 10 or more non-Koreans can do really well.
Yeah. Well, we are on Catalyst. In the top left, he just took that game. It is the blue Zerg, Namshar.
And his opponent needing your support to hopefully bring this back and go to a game number 3. From France, it's Stephano.
16.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just kind of what he does. That's what I'm saying. It's part of the problem with Stephano. It's easy to criticize, and of course, as a caster, we kind of on some level do have to do that. And I look at it and I say, I think a little bit of his problem is, again, that he's predictable, like I talked about, but it's also, and it sucks, because I know that when I was a pro gamer, I hated when people did this, but I'm going to do it. If you look at Cyril and in his games, he's constantly informed with, like, very active lings, always seeing the size of the army and where it's going, the saturation at bases. And I feel like for a lot of these Zergs, Stephano in particular here, the beginning of the game, they do that, of course, because that's just what a top-level Zerg does. But as the game goes, those lurkers do catch them off guard. The speed of the hive does catch them off guard. The drone saturation and the difference in where you can go, it seems to be something that falls off a little bit. And that is a hard part of the game, by the way, staying informed in ZvZ. It seems easy when we all make jokes about it, but I think it's pretty difficult, actually.
Well, ZvZ is like, I actually am just astounded that the amount of people, the amount of good Zergs in Europe can consistently do this, where they don't die to something silly like a bunch of lings running through, or they just fall behind by 20 drones.
Right.
That's what everyone in chat would be doing as soon as they say like 2 lings. They're like, oh god. But like, it still comes down to, I think, like Stephano, like his army fights. I know that's a lot of people, especially when it comes down to Roach versus Roach, because laying Baneling, I mean, you can talk a lot about how they micro and they missed him with Nova Lord, so that's why he ran into the Banelings. But Roach versus Roach, a lot of people are just like, well, does he have a concave or doesn't he? But it's actually like you watch Cyril, and you can see that he actually makes these moves. He used like the correct amount of Ravagers to Roaches. The ratio is perfect.
Oh man.
I choose Cyril not just because he's recently been very good, but because he was the guy in the past, I think it was like 4 or 5 months ago, where I saw him come back from a 40 army supply deficit with Roaches to Roach, and I was like, well, he just has like, a concave, that's about it. And then he won, and I was like, oh, there's actually more to Roach versus Roach? What? So that's why I look at him like, I don't know how you improve on that necessarily, if Stephano has to study up on his replays or not, but he's already down in his last life in this group, so now would be a really bad time to go and find those replays.
And that's always been the problem too. There's of course the kind of mental monkey on his back, if you will, where he goes into this and says, well, it's Zerg versus Zerg, and that's the matchup I can't really win. So it becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, even though Stephano's not one of the kind of more emo European Zergs, who if you ask them about balance and stuff like that, they kind of start going, well, there's nothing I can do. It's just so bad. Stephano is actually always pretty good about being like, no, I'm just terrible at this right now.
Yeah.
But when you believe you're terrible and then you get a group like this, which is just screaming at your weakness, it's hard. It's hard to overcome all of that for the reasons like you said, too, where it's like the day of. You can't just start to be like, well, I'm going to change things all of a sudden.
I thought maybe this would be more Ling Baneling focused, but Stephano actually has quite a later Baneling nest. I don't know much when it's like, kind of like poke the beast here. Is want Namshar to counter when his Banelings aren't quite ready to go. And Namshar's Banelings, as you can see, already ready. Stephano did a cute little trick to try and pop them before they were able to help defend. And he does take out both of them. 2 more are on the way. Namshar caught maybe a little off guard. Okay, 1 more on the way. But not enough oomph, I guess, behind that. Stephano had gone back into droning.
Yep, as both players will slide back into that. And it's fun, too, because when we watch this, a lot of times we as viewers can get locked into the, like, actual butcher's bill. Like, we say, okay, well, here's what the trade was. But it's just such a tightrope walk, as you talked about earlier, between these players, where for right now, that was repelled, and that's fine. But you have to maintain that all game, right? That drone number, like the overreaction or underreaction to the different kind of aggressions. And this is just the opening act. There's going to be more.
And Namshar's going to use the Lings that he made to defend, to counter, in typical ZvZ dance. He does find this around on the Queen, manages to avoid the Banelings. 3 for 2 actually went in favor of Stephano, but not much behind it for Namshar either this time, as he also went back into droning. He is ahead in drones. He will stay ahead in drones. Stephano was, I think he was a little bit supply blocked, but he also is just, I feel like Stephano is probably the most well-known Zerg player for making like 7 overlords at a time. Yeah. Fairly on in the game, so that's just what he did, so that's why he's a little behind on that.
He was one of the originators way back in the day, like 5-6 years ago, for hit that drone number of like 65, 70 or so, and then make 9 overlords so that you never have to do anything ever again except for just make roaches. It obviously raised the hackles of a lot of players, but it's also kind of ingenious in its simplicity, right? Like allowed him to focus on the micro and the engagement like you were talking about earlier as well.
Yeah. But it is why he falls behind a little on the drones, and while he maybe eventually catches up, so it's 60 to 60 or something like that, those are, 30-second spikes in favor of Namshar, who has the defense once again against a very tiny Ling squad, is up 11 drones, already on his way to +1. This time, Stephano, okay, he changed things up by going for a much faster upgrade than ever before. He does not have that, he does have actually lair. Oh, there's the roach speed, sorry. So he's just making a lot of roaches now, but I mean, you just have to wait for roach speed to really do very much. He's going to see, I think if he comes back in, that Namshar, of course, has his own roaches and actually already on his way to a 2nd evolution chamber.
Yeah, and he's just, Stephano's just going to go for that same timing attack again, where speed barely finishes or is just about to finish when he's about to hit. +2 is on its way, and like you said, it's a lot faster this time, so that's a nice little adjustment. But otherwise, it's the same thing again. And if you look at Namshar, he's got an overseer in the main base. He's checking out what's coming out. He sees roaches being produced. And while he has that drone advantage, like you pointed out, it is about 11. It seems like he's just going to rock that. And when Stephano gets across the map, he'll have a slight army advantage. But unless he does something different, it's going to play out the same way, right?
Yeah, and it's too bad because, just thinking more about this whole, army problem, because it's always been roaches to roaches. We haven't seen Stephano try and mix things up with, I don't know, upgraded Ling busts or Muta play, which...
Spire behind it.
I mean, he might not be doing because every Zerg so far has been very good about scouting for it, so it's always that conundrum, but it's something different if you're not really making the roach battles work, even when you have an army supply lead or even an upgrade lead, although he is hitting with the roach speed, his +2 is way far away, so that's not going to be contributing to this fight. If he even takes the fight, he's actually going to be splitting up here, but Namshar likes to go for a bit faster than Overlord speed, so he's able to tail every single roach. Actually misses this a little bit. That's awkward.
Yeah, a little bit of miscontrol there as the right flank is going to get some nice hits and kills. But even this is just a tour of a bad scenario. He's still down 10 drones. He needs to do a lot. There's the Banelings trying to get some work done. They do kill 5-6 drones, not bad. And because of the better engagement for Stephano, you start to begin to believe.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. He's trying to... I mean, Namshar is on even army supply here, so it really is just, are you splitting well? And he's splitting well enough. So he is missing, surprisingly, despite having that overload speed, he hasn't actually tailed the roaches with an overseer or something like that. There he goes now. No surprise at how often he lost the roaches. But even army supply, no one with the upgrade lead quite yet. Just moving into the roaches. Stephano, did he overextend?
Yeah, 4 hatches to just the 3 of Stephano, so a lot more production in for Namshar. Gets a little bit of the surround, and he is going to take a decisive win. Stephano's had enough. GG as Namshar takes the loser bracket game 2-0 over Stephano, predictably so. I hope you guys enjoyed it, though, because, again, this one obviously was a bopping, but the one before it, it's not like Stephano doesn't have any idea. He's like B level, and everyone else right now in Europe that he's facing in these tough tournaments is A level.
Yeah.
They're not making the same mistakes. Something you said earlier, the different tech paths, trying out lurkers, trying out Ling openings, Spire play. That's the stuff everyone else is doing. Stephano seems to be playing catch up.
Yeah, just you know, pushing his, I guess, style of roaches and trying to make it work, but it's not. So, I mean, we say goodbye to Stephano, but Namshar, maybe we could pay a little more attention to him as he still lives. He gets to go on to face either Snoots or a Laser, which will be happening next. But I think that was a good confidence booster, right? Like, his games earlier today were not bad at all. So it's not like he's down in the dumps, but then you quickly take out another Zerg player, and now you get to watch more ZvZ of your potential opponents. You're just sitting there like, okay, crafting the master plan here. I actually think that he should still feel confident about getting out of this group, even though his opponents are the more established, experienced players.
I agree. He's going to be one ZvZ away from that, but we're going to head into this winner's match right away. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, it's two of Europe's finest, the Laser taking on Snoot. We'll see you guys soon.